right, so thank you all again to everyone joining us tonight, to all of our presenters and our curator, Jessica Kallista. My name is Stephanie Grimm. I am the art history librarian, and gallery manager for Fenwick Gallery, which is in Fenwick Library on Mason's Fairfax campus. If you haven't been there before, it's sort of just on the main area of the library. And we are so pleased to host and be able to work with everyone here for Conjuring Presence. I will let Jessica speak a little bit more about the show's theme and what the participants were doing. But I wanted to just open up by giving some context, just a tiny bit of context for this show. This grows out of a longer running exhibition series that we used to host in Fenwick Library. And this year we determined to make some changes for various reasons. Thinking about the ways that we support and host graduate and student and faculty exhibitions, who's represented in those, whose voices are heard, but also thinking really about the nature of collaboration and how that works in Fenwick Gallery as a space. We take as our motto that we are a space for inquiry. We value questions as much as answers. And so Fenwick Gallery becomes this like testing ground for ideas. And I think the work that we're going to see tonight really exemplifies so much of that. And so I also, before I move on and forget, I want to thank the sponsors for this exhibition, the university libraries, the Mason School of Art, and the Creative Writing Program, who all gave generously to help us make this happen. All right, at this point, I will turn it over to Jessica Kallista. Jessica is an artist working in collage, video, sound, and performance. She's also an educator, curator, and gallerist. She received her MFA in creative writing from Mason in 2002. And in 2014, she founded Ali Ali, an alternative gallery space in Fairfax, Virginia. Jessica has taught collage at the Corcoran School of Art and Design at George Washington, and poetry, critical theory, aesthetics, and writing for artists at George Mason University. In summer 2020, she began curating and co-moderating CVPA's Arts in Context, Criticos Anti-Racist Reading Group. Through her multifaceted work, Jessica seeks to disrupt the passive nihilism intrinsic in much of everyday life by creating situations of surprise, play, pleasure, and experimentation, while instigating dialogue and experience around embodiment, race, sexuality, feminism, and spirituality. So I will turn it over to Jessica now. Thank you so much, Jessica.
Thank you, Stephanie. I just want to start by just saying thank you to everybody for being here. And I want to read our land acknowledgement for Mason. So land acknowledgement engages all present in an ongoing Indigenous protocol to enact meaningful reciprocal relationships with ancestors and contemporary tribal nations. As a state university, we have a responsibility to include and support Indigenous communities and sovereign tribes in our work. At the place George Mason University occupies, we give greetings and thanksgivings to these Potomac River life sources. To the Doeg ancestors who Virginia annihilated in violent campaigns while ripping their lands apart with the brutal system of African-American enslavement. To the recognized Virginia tribes who have lovingly stewarded these lands for millennia, including the Rappahannock, Pamunkey, Upper Mattaponi, Chickahominy, Eastern Chickahominy, Nansemond, Monacan, Mattaponi, Patawomack, and Nottoway, past, present, and future, and to the Piscataway tribes who have lived on both sides of the river from time immemorial. I just want to start by talking a little bit about the vision and the curatorial statement for Conjuring Presence. Conjuring Presence works intentionally towards an inclusive and equitable future. In the curatorial statement, I asked artists to consider and respond to questions that are essential to understanding and shaping this inclusive future. What does it mean to become mindful of the need to work against erasure when we understand who is not present and why? Who decides whether some people are or are not allowed to be present to occupy spaces in the arts and academia? How do we acknowledge the past, work for a just future, and still ground ourselves in the present? So much of the history of art exhibitions and academia is probably problematically notable for who is excluded. I worked consciously as a curator of this exhibition to conjure the future we want to see, a future that is diverse, equitable, inclusive, and accessible to all. And the exhibition is exciting and the collaborations are phenomenal. I'm just so in love with all of the works and excited to learn more from the artists tonight. So I want to start by introducing Angela Terry. Angela Terry is an MFA graphic design student at George Mason. She is a graphic designer as well as a professor at Northern Virginia Community College.
Hello, thank you for having me tonight. The piece that I designed, really it's, I don't know, this whole thing has just been a journey for me, being a part of the MFA program. And 2020 has just been, it's just affected us all in different ways. And at the start of the semester, I wanted to get out and go to a museum and look at an exhibit because they've been closed for so long. And here in DC, you had to make an appointment, get a scheduled time, and you're all booked. And I found out about this exhibit at the Virginia Museum of Fine Arts called Dirty South, which celebrated Black artists. And I went to that exhibit and I spent the entire day, this gorgeous museum, and was really inspired by the work that I saw and the voices that I heard through multimedia, through traditional fine arts. And when I came back and started school this semester, I was invited to do this. And Conjuring Presence was very strong statement for me. And the image in the background that you barely see, that is of me in, I think, the second or the third grade. And there was an innocence I had at that time where I thought I was being seen and I thought I was free, but I never learned about slavery until elementary school. My parents didn't talk to me about that. They were busy working. And I was shocked when my teacher brought it up in class as a history lesson and was telling the students of this. And I was in an all-white classroom. I was one of the few Black students. And I became very aware of not only myself, but my family's history and really for the first time where my family has come from. And it made me feel less than. And this piece, I think, speaks to a lot of personal things that I've gone through as a female, as a Black American, that I could talk about. This is probably one of my more personal pieces that I've done to date. That's really all I have to say about this. It's just a statement of saying that I am here, even though you may not see me or you may not want to see me. That's all I have to say.
Thank you. It's so incredibly powerful, Angela, and I love your statement as well that it's so concise, and it helped me feel like that is enough. I am enough. It is enough to be here and to acknowledge that we are here. It's really, really so powerful.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much for this exhibition. And I'm so grateful to meet you. Hopefully one day I'll meet in person, but I'm just appreciate and I'm just so grateful for the work that you've created and for that you're part of this exhibition. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm gonna get emotional.
Yeah.
That is really, it resonates so much, and it's I feel that classroom experience so deeply, and still, I think we hold those experiences, those revelations that we have, and that acknowledgement to say we are here. So thank you for that.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay, so next up is Jax Ohashi, and Jax Ohashi was born and raised in Fairfax, Virginia. He holds a BFA in industrial design from the Rochester Institute of Technology in Rochester, New York. After what he hopes to be his last existential crisis, he has come to George Mason University in Fairfax, Virginia to complete his MFA in sculpture. So,
Hey.
Jax, hi.
Thank you. Thank you. I didn't know you were gonna read that whole thing. That was fun. Hi, I'm Jax, he, him. This is the first time I've participated in what used to be call and response, now the Loop Lab. And this piece kind of began when I talked to my artist through Zoom. So Simone, I've never met you, but it was really cool to talk with her. And she's a third-year MFA candidate that one of the things she was really interested in beyond the history of her own, Black and Caribbean culture was erasure, was the method, or the medium method that she worked in. And we got stuck. We made like a little mind map in Google Docs. And she showed me all these really cool examples of like poets that she admired. And I learned there was a difference between like blackout and whiteout poetry. And I got thinking about the word erasure and then that word presence, because those really went together quite well. I spent quite a bit of time reading over the stuff that Jessica had written in preparation for the show. And something that I used when I was kind of thinking about the piece was history and the kind of metaphor of erasure, of cutting something out of something. And if you go and you see the book that I made, its pages aren't entirely, they don't look like a normal book. It's almost like an accordion book. That's kind of, if you ever seen one of those that pull out and all the pages fan out. And they're held together by little ties that used to be square, but then I changed them to look like more like little butterflies, because those are typically like a symbol of hope, travel, change, metamorphosis, transformation. And then each page has like a void or several little holes cut in it, which was actually inspired by the cross section of a person, a basic human form, like laying down. So when you pull out the pages or position them, there's a void that's roughly the shape of like a person. And then when it closes, it becomes a book, which I think is fitting as this takes place in a gallery that's connected to a library. But it became something that referenced history books, referenced stories in general, written and spoken, and what's kind of missing from those pages when you pull them out and look at them. And I almost wanted to make this a huge like thing you could walk in between and see, or you could lay inside of, but it kind of became just the right size for the gallery. But I almost started seeing it as like a maquette, a model for like a larger sculpture that people could interact with. And then the color of the outside is actually navy and the inside of the pages were black. And I was wondering, I had sent Simone some pictures and I was like, I don't know if I want it to be black. Like, it's really sad. It should be maybe not so depressing. And she was like, no, like I barely see books with black pages. Like, it makes it more interesting. And then sometimes when the light hits it just right, you get some cool shadows that come through the holes in the pages. Yeah, thank you very much. That's I can't remember the title I gave it. There it is, Curious Voids. That was the term. A history textbook or a history book. But that term, the curious voids that we see everywhere, it named itself right at the end. Like, it all of a sudden all came together. So that's why I couldn't remember the title.
I love that. Yeah, I love the title. That's amazing. And I just here with the screen that is being shared, I just want to give like huge thanks to Stephanie and Chen and everybody involved in making the website, because it's just gorgeous. I love the way that the works are presented, and it's just really beautiful and moving, and it's just so wonderful to hear about the process. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephanie and Chen, for making us look good in the
Yeah,
gallery and online.
good. Thank you. Next up is Boris Willis. Boris Willis is Associate Professor of Computer Game Design at George Mason University, and the founder of Black Russian Games and Chief Artistic Officer of Boris Willis Moves. He has performed with Streb, Jacob's Pillows Men's Dancers, and Liz Lerman. He is the founder of the dance video blog danceaday.com. Willis has an MFA in Dance and Technology from the Ohio State University, a BFA in Dance from George Mason University, and is a graduate of the North Carolina School of the Arts. He is the recipient of a Kennedy Center Local Dance Commission, a Virginia Commission for the Arts Choreography Fellowship, and was a 2018 Artist in Residence at the Watermill Center.
Well, thank you very much, Jessica. So I worked with a poet, Vivek Narayan. We would get together mainly for coffee, and we'd have these sort of long conversations, mainly starting off with sort of a way to just to get to know each other. And they kind of, these stories that we started to tell each other would morph into other kinds of sort of experiences. And we would sort of get the sense of this is an encounter. And so we started to sort of think about and talk about all the different kinds of encounters that we would have as people in the different places that we lived, in the different ways that we were viewed, and the different ways that we felt as we were being viewed. And what we wanted to do was to really sort of imagine what it would be like if we kind of took away some of the identifiers, to see what the stories are without some of the labels, without some of the sort of those ways that people categorize us and identify us. So we came up with a lot of these encounters, and that we put together. And so this was the text. And so he and I both sort of shared the writing back and forth of these encounters. So the next step was to take the encounters and to put them into this software, which changed the voices. And so there's a number of voices that can be used. This one is a voice that I created actually just a few days ago. I didn't realize I could do it, but It's basically taking my voice and it's using artificial intelligence, and it allows it to read this using the tones and the sounds of my own voice. And so what I had Vivek do was to come into each one of the texts, and he could sort of come in and say here, for instance, he could add a silence, and maybe he'd have a short, medium, a long silence. He might find a word, and then maybe he wants to change the volume of the word, change the speed, the speed, change the pitch. And sometimes the voices will have a certain style as well. So some of them have more than one style, and some of them have, you know, just one. But so he would make 2 or 3 of these encounters for, well, I guess what I'm saying is he would take this text and do 2 or 3 different versions of them. And then he would give me those versions after he made them all. And then I brought them into a game engine. And we used these characters called metahumans, and we both sort of made these characters. And so basically what they are is just really sort of highly detailed, sort of humanoid looking characters that have certain features that we created, and they would become the faces that would go with different voices. So the voices would all be different. So there might be 3 or 4 different voices that this particular character would have. So the characters don't necessarily match the voices. And from there, I would sort of create a scene and create some sort of camera movement to go along with it. I don't think you can hear the audio, but you would hear the audio, and the audio would play randomly for each of these scenes. So you wouldn't necessarily hear the same audio for every time you played it. So it would have some sense of replayability about it. And so this one doesn't have what we call the metahuman in it, but it just has some sort of open scene. The next one that you'll see it has the metahuman. And because I'm a dancer and choreographer, I also was interested in having them move and dance through the scene. And so, you know, using, you know, skills that have to do with filmmaking and, you know, movement and, you know, trying to see what the experience is, and then having these voices be different voices with each of these characters. And sometimes it's just facial animation, but sometimes it's body animation as well, and sometimes it's both. So basically, that was the process that we went through of sort of creating these different scenes, and then basically creating these little movies that would fit the different encounters that we come up with.
Boris, I love how you've just taken us through that process, but also knowing a little bit about you as a dancer. Like, these movements are your movements. Yes. So I don't know if you want to talk any more about the process of, like, I could really see you like embodied in these movements.
Yeah. Well, what the process was, so one of the classes I teach is motion capture. And so I was able to sort of go into the motion capture studio, and that's where you have all the little things all over your body, and then you capture the movement, and then that's a long process of cleaning the data. So it's all my movement, but it can go on many different kinds of characters. And so that's another way we wanted to sort of mask the identities or the perceived identities of these characters, so that you wouldn't necessarily, so that any notion that you brought could be challenged. And so that was one of the things that we really wanted to sort of look at as we were creating these.
Thank you. I love that. I love it so much. So thank you. Thank you.
Welcome.
So next, I would love to learn more from Strange Lens. Strange Lens is an experimental multidisciplinary artist combining both physical and digital work media, as well as performance and film.
Hey guys, thank you so much for having me. Thank you, Jessica and Stephanie, for putting the show together. Yes, thank you. That's a good place to start. So the way it happened with I was paired with Catherine Keeney, I think, and we didn't really have enough time to meet with each other because she was really busy with her MFA stuff that she's doing. I think she's graduating next semester. She was really busy. She wrote me like a month later, and then I was really busy as well because my MFA show had just ended last week. Thank you so much for coming, anybody that came. It was really greatly appreciated. So so we decided that we're just gonna exchange some work. So she sent me some of her poetry and I sent her some of my work, and we ended up having this fusion of things. So so the if you can go back, Jessica, to the very first image, that was the one that was inspired by one of her poems. Like she sent me like maybe 10 or 9 of them, but I kind of got like the whole kind of vibe from them. And there's one specific one that talked about like Las Vegas and champagne, and then like glitter. And I don't know why, but like this image came to me and like instantly, you know, it's weird. It's like one of those things where like you don't think about it. You don't, like, sometimes people have to think about, oh my God, what am I gonna come up with, or how am I gonna like associate this with something? But like it's weird that you instantly have this image in your head. And this is actually an image from a book that's it's a sketchbook. Really, it just has like photographs and like little obsessive zeros that I usually do. So and eventually I want to make it like an actual artist book, but I just had an idea that, oh my God, this is the image that I'm envisioning, and I thought that it would be cool to make, because right now this is actually still, but it's actually like a what they call a cinematograph, like a moving image, which is not really moving, but it looks like it's moving. Like it's like maybe tingling a little bit, or like a tremble. I don't know what's the word. It's like vibrating a little bit, and like I added a little bit of the those sparkle thingies, the you know, the glitter that you see on there. Yeah, there you go. Yeah, so that was added on there because I thought about specifically about the words that she was saying, and I just like I had that image in my head. And that's how that came about. And it's really interesting. Like, you know, I want to make like a whole bunch of these now. You know, it's very interesting how like words can push you into like, you know, into that word dimension where you see where you're looking to your own work, and then you kind of, you know, you see it in a very different way when other people look at it, and then, you know, you don't even, I mean, it's very interesting, if that makes sense.
It does make sense. And I love the word trembling, like the picture vibrating, but trembling. Yeah. I like the word that. And definitely thinking about the way that writing is going to stimulate something. It's not just stimulating another part of your thinking or your brain or your body or your work, but it is like what you said, like it's stimulating you to work in another realm, another dimension, right?
Exactly, and that's what my work is about, really. It's like, it's about the virtual, it's about the, you know, the dreams and all that stuff. So like that, I think that really worked well together. I feel like, yeah, like you just said.
Yeah, I love that so much. Just being able to tap in and to make these connections, you know, and I'm always saying with this project, like, I really hope that people will hold on to these connections that are made with these other artists and these other creatives that are pushing us to expand our realms, to expand the dimensions, to help us work in all of these other directions that, you know, stimulates all of the multiple potentials that we haven't necessarily tapped into on our own. That interconnectivity makes art more powerful, makes it larger, makes it more expansive and abundant. So I love that.
Yeah, thank you for keeping it going.
Oh, well, thank you so much for being part of this exhibition, and congratulations on your thesis exhibition.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for everybody that came. I really appreciate it.
Really, it's a gift for us to be able to see it. So I appreciate you. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Yes. Up next is Peter Lee, and Changa Peter Lee is currently based out of New York and Washington, D.C. He is a theorist, media artist, complexity visualizer, quantum data analyst, and performance lecturer whose work focuses on cryptocurrency systems, quantum internet culture, and the inference web to accelerate the neg-Anthropocene, a post-Anthropocene period, which synthesizes art, philosophy, science, commerce, and activism to produce verifiable solutions and implementations to today's eco-social crises. He is currently a research fellow for Provisions Library for Arts and Social Change, based out of George Mason University, utilizing complexity visualization techniques and quantum data science. He has collaboratively produced work for the Chile Architectural Biennale and the Venice Biennale of 2019. He is a major contributor to the design of an open source patent and data and fiat co-op integrating ethical cryptocurrencies and minority art and culture, exploring the potentialities of quantum internet. The system is slated for periodic reviews by personnel at the US Patent Office and the US Treasury. Hey, Peter.
All right, thank you. That was amazing. That was I've never heard somebody say that out loud.
You know, it's great to have it out loud. It's awesome.
Thank you. You did great. Thank you so much, first of all, just for having me and Matt in the exhibition. Unfortunately, he had some things to deal with, so I'm going to be kind of riffing. Is it okay, just up front, I have a lot of stuff. Is it okay if I use you said 5 to 8 minutes. Can I use the maximum 8 minutes? You could just stop me at that.
I think that's okay. Yes.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah.
I'm going to just start sharing the screen. Okay. Okay, so our work was titled Quantum Die, and it was kind of centered around this kind of fictional character named Joseph B. Boyce. And it was based around this 2 objects, which was both physical and virtual. So there was an animation, kind of lo-fi animation, which I really enjoy, me and Matt both. It's kind of based on the kind of neuroaesthetics of kind of glitch and, you know, using retro technology. But the interesting part I was kind of pulling from was the idea of some other group's idea of, it's called hollow structuralism, but the idea is that it's both physical and virtual at the same time, so you don't really miss anything. And then it's open source, so it's just giving away every part. There's many points you can enter from, kind of like a hologram. So all of this was kind of part of, what's it called, this idea of superposition, which is pulled from quantum computers, where all things are in multiple states simultaneously, like energy, matter, and information. So me and Matt were kind of playing doubles of each other and also transforming our kind of roles. Like he was conceptualizing, I was conceptualizing, he was writing, I was writing, I was doing graphics, he was doing. So it kind of really did this Conjuring Presence thing. And then at the same time, I was doing a lot of research into kind of newer things happening around ideas of quantum internet and also minority cultures and indigenous cultures in particular. I got connected into this network where it was they were playing this what's called the game of solutions. So they're using art as a zone of solutions. And it was there's participants in the Venice Biennale. It's kind of mimicking. So this year's Venice Biennale is or this upcoming is based on the idea of children's surrealism and dreams. So I was like, oh, this is interesting. Like this idea of children's play and then like dreams and solutions, really interesting. And so it was also, and then I kind of dug deeper. Some other people, weird dark web stuff. And so I stumbled upon this kind of, what's called this indigenous and minority student underground network using the dark web and kind of working in semi-encrypted ways, using planetary data sets, working with like IoTs, like ecological sensors and like people over the net. And they're talking about this idea of inference, which is basically when you can, you take differing data sets and then you can basically kind of extrapolate a third data set, which is what a lot of quantum data science is kind of based on. Is like you have A and then you have B and then you extrapolate C from a third point of view. So I was talking to them and like kind of working out some ideas, and then I kind of became integrated into their network, similar to how I think you were presenting this kind of respect to indigenous. But these people are all super like anonymous. They're like super critical philosophy, tech savvy, and I'm just like, okay, I'm just gonna like translate some parts, and they're like, and if I do it wrong, just smack me, you know, like just hit me with a stick. And I was like, so we're okay with that. We kind of have that working relationship. So the kind of inspiration that the quantum die itself came from was the idea of this old idea of philosophical toys. So the idea is, from academia, like there was a lot of writers and kind of thinkers and intellectuals who wanted to propagate kind of new public knowledge. So they would turn it into toys. So it'd be approachable. So it'd be understandable by even like a teenager, so their kid could understand it. I really like that approach. And I was, for this project, I was kind of fusing it with the idea of Joseph Kosuth, where it's like you have multiple kind of ways to enter the work. And then it's also at the same time, it's kind of young adult friendly. So I kind of translated this idea of hollow structuralism from other kind of quantum internet things. I just kind of aggregated it, synthesized it. Is that the idea that all points in the universe are self-teaching, and they can kind of extrapolate a bigger structure. So it's like a seed can kind of extrapolate the larger tree structure. This is where I kind of me and Matt got the idea of like using hexagons, because they have this nice geometric thing you can push into dimensions, or you can kind of place them together like chemistry. And they also have this association with board games. I think people are used to seeing this type of stuff. And so after all that, recently I was kind of pulled into this other really strange project after getting connected to the strange network. So people were kind of really focusing on this idea of, it's called, because I was really talking about children's toys and kind of like, oh, we can kind of translate the newest ideas into children's toys and stuff and just shortcut this huge block in academia. And I found this guy, somebody put me onto this guy, Richard Feynman. He was a scientist who used to draw diagrams on his van and travel around. And he was known for, there was this point in science where everybody was writing papers. And then like the inventions literally stopped. And then this guy invented this diagram system. And then like literally at that point on, just like this flood of inventions opened up. And I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. Because this is really, it's kind of analogous to the state of information today. We have so much data and information available, but it's like nobody knows how. It's so, I get a headache trying to connect it, but it's like, and then like my mom's just like yelling at me all the time, like, what are you talking about, Peter? I'm like, so I found this point in history. I was like, oh, this guy kind of addressed this problem of complex information into kind of digestible chunks. At the same time, there's this idea of philosophical toys. There's also this guy I really love, Umberto Eco. He wrote this book called Foucault's Pendulum, which kind of condenses across a lot of disciplinary fields, synthesizes it into this like planetary conspiracy. And then I think Da Vinci Code was inspired from that, the movie. So anyways, I was like, oh, what's interesting is like this information that takes like 15 years to get a PhD to get, it's like, it is, if translated in the right way, like a teenager can understand it, So maybe it takes 15 years to be able to construct it, but to understand it, maybe it takes like 10 minutes, 15 minutes. So then I was thinking, I was working with some other people to come up with this idea called, and I'm kind of in this closed, weird group of like, just weird people. It's called the Heart Market. So the idea is, let's see. Okay, so HEART stands for, I forgot to write this. Whoa. Hypothetical equilibrium. So the idea is whoa, I misspelled that, sorry. Bad typos. HE and then art market, hypothetical equilibrium, art market. So the idea is that like art could be used to find balances within systems and to propose solutions that are balanced. And like, I thought this was an interesting way to navigate the rift of kind of representation, like minorities and indigenous students, and also kind of the kind of wealth of thought and systems within academia, and also within wider culture. Because there's a lot of, from the past year or so, just kind of wandering around, there's a lot of like kind of disconnects in the communities and businesses and city and all these things. So I was thinking, and with some other people, I was like, it'd be interesting if we created a market where it's people get paid for the work of creating equality, basically, kind of hypothetical, you actually have to produce it because it doesn't exist yet. It's like artificial, but it's constructive. So they're inputting all this crazy stuff into it. This idea of that we can actually create an art market where it can be peer verified or peer reviewed and kind of proof by simulators and all this stuff. So it has the rigor of academia, but it's also like the productive, creative aspect of art at the same time. So it's like, oh, this artwork could actually create a balance in the community and over here very rapidly. Because they're telling me all these crazy facts, like there's 10 years to planetary collapse. One kid dies every 5 seconds of preventable poverty. And this is why I was doing the research into cryptocurrency, because they're saying it's like the only way you can prevent this at scale is to create a cryptocurrency that's also able to integrate into all these cracks in the systems. I was also working as part of the Heart Market to kind of work out strategies with people in Miami, Florida. They're addressing gentrification through creating risk measures with climate data to price into the markets to lower the house. Because I moved back here and I was like, what's going on? It's like $500,000 for like a 1-bedroom house, like my mom's basement. Like I have to pay like $500,000. And I was like, okay, this is ridiculous. So I was just doing research on that. I'm also working with kind of contacting my estranged father, because he used to be a programmer, and I thought it would be interesting narrative, like coming from repairing the broken home type of narrative, but using data and also for collective good. There's a couple of things I'm just going to rip through. So part of the Heart Market is basically just kind of connecting kind of bubbling solutions to places. I'm working with my partner, Selma Selman. She's an activist from Bosnia. She's interested in working with kind of logicians and mathematicians to expand the scope of justice for minorities, because they typically have less kind of negotiating power in legal arenas. I'm also trying to bring over, because there's like conflict also possibly on the horizon, Bosnia. So I'm trying to bring over some kind of cool social practice things happening. Ben Ashworth's projects and kind of Edgar Andrus's project dealing with social practice, which can also bring over individuals with practices to these places that are kind of post-conflict, but still kind of, there's a lot of cultural tension, but nobody's shooting at each other. There's a lot of cultural tension. And also I'm working with Dawn with Provisions to kind of talk about or start to address the idea of public knowledge management, which is a problem I understand that also libraries have, is like kind of visualizing large amounts of information so that people can access it, find solutions and tools and share with each other. So this again was where I was doing the research into diagrams. It's a field called analytic design. And I thought it had an interesting kind of parallel with a lot of indigenous architecture and American Indian architecture in cities. They would carve kind of the relations of how the cities worked, like who was the administrator, where the food come from, who took care of the kind of stonework and all the stuff. So it'd be carved into the walls. And I thought that was an interesting kind of solution. So I'm working with like kind of visualizing images and data, and also kind of community data. So creating collective self-portraits, both through Provisions and also with people in Turkey. We're working with the Istanbul kind of contemporary art scene. This is my friend Ozan. He's also very fashionable. This is where I get my cues from, fashion cues. And let's see. Last thing is I have a long-standing relationship with, of course, Matt and also Thomas Stanley. And we've always been talking about using games as a way for kind of mobilizing populations, like kind of in a very civic engagement games, but that don't like hit you over the head or make you tired or exhausted or burned out and needing therapy, but kind of coupling civic engagement with kind of also autodidacticism and like arts-based education, where it's like you're encouraged to express your own vision. So I've been working with kind of people like, including my mom, of kind of, I've been doing art because I was stuck at home. I was doing art projects with my mom at home and like making stuff around the house, doing performance art, having screenings, all this stuff, like everything you do in a gallery, I was doing at my home, and kind of developing this curriculum that like, that's very low energy and just, it's just about promoting conceptual thinking and thinking differently, but in a very relaxing, because it's not like the rigorous university stuff, which has a place. It's just much more, it's more of like opening possibilities. Also, we're kind of coordinating with some other activists in other parts to kind of create a yes men type of stunt. After I ran into the student network, they were like, we need somebody to run for president that we can puppet. And I was like, all right, I'll do it. So like, now I'm like running around, like, I'm like, okay, I'm just gonna sign the papers. You guys just tell you can go. You can literally take my face and just do whatever needs to be done, and I'll take a nap. I don't want to be out there. So that's a whole barrage and buffet of things. Sorry about that. But yeah, that's where this project came from, and then it threw me into a deep hole. And then, yeah, I'm so glad to be part of it. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Peter. Like, I love the way your mind works, and it's not even enough to say like that this is like a diagram of my brain also. And so I really appreciate the way that it's like constructed and presented here for us to explain like your thinking. It's amazing.
Okay.
I love it just too much. And I'm just seeing all like the potentials of where this could go, and I am behind you. 100%.
Okay, thank you so much.
I am on board.
Awesome. Okay.
Yeah. I love this so much, and I love the idea also of the creating the performance art in your home with your mother. Like, of course, that's what we all do, right? That's what everybody should be doing. Like, who's not doing that?
Yeah,
I mean,
she's
I'm
really
sorry if you're not, but we should all be doing that. And,
Right.
and I'm, it's totally, it's just perfect. And I love that. And I think that if we can all be living our life doing that performance art with our moms, like what else is better than that? Other than this incredible like diagram of your brain and the map of how that works is just gorgeous. So thank you.
No, thank you.
I want more.
Okay, sure.
I want more of this. Please,
Okay.
please keep creating this. Tell me more. Keep send it to all of us because it's just absolute brilliance. And so thank you.
No, thank you. Okay.
Gosh, well, thank you. I mean, everybody, I don't know if people have more, if they have questions, and I just want to reiterate too, like all of you who've been in this exhibition and make the connections that you've made with the other artists, writers, other creatives that you worked with. Please do everything you can to solidify that, because this interconnectivity that we have, I know when we're in these sort of circles of other creatives, it might seem like, oh, this is just how everything's happening. But honestly, these connections are, they're precious and rare and important. And I'm just so grateful for the connections that I've made with all the artists and creatives in this exhibition and along the way. So solidify that, iterate and reiterate, connect, reestablish, keep in contact, keep building on the ideas that you made here and that community connection. We all have that power and responsibility to uphold it and to keep it going. And I truly, you're all some of the most brilliant and inspiring and gorgeous and amazing artists and creatives that I know. And I'm so grateful for all of you. And I just want you to just stay connected and keep making these connections and this creativity that we wouldn't have otherwise if we weren't in these environments, and to amplify and celebrate those. But that's enough for me. If anybody else has questions, please bring them and discuss.
And while we're waiting for questions to come in, I will also just thank again Heather Green, who I think her name was mentioned earlier, who is also a co-curator for this exhibition, and Chen B, who is the Fenwick Gallery graduate assistant, who was really crucial in getting this website together, getting this exhibition together. I neglected to mention both their names at the start, and that was such a huge oversight for the amount of work everyone has contributed to the show. So I want to make sure to acknowledge them. Really, this is such a group effort to make happen. This is, not the, when we were talking about this over the summer with Jessica and this idea of the loop and feedback loops and strange loops and Mobius loops, all these things, this idea of things coming back on themselves and unfolding, like listening to you all talk tonight, it's like, yes, this is what we wanted. This is what we were thinking. This is what the thing we wanted to put this energy into, and then give you the space to take it and do things we could never have imagined would come out of this exhibition. So thank you all. I'm not even making sense at this point because I'm also just thinking about the diagrams that Peter had up, oh. And I'm just checking the chat. I don't see any questions, but again, if you want to send anything to the artists, you can do that here. If you want to send anything after the show, I'm going to put my email address in the chat box. But if you have questions or hey, someone mentioned this cool thing, how can I get in touch with them? you can either send that to me, you can send it to Jessica, email in here as well. And you could also find out the information about the artists on the exhibition website. I'll put the link again to the chat and that. The exhibition is up through December 11th in Fenwick Gallery. It is also online through that time, at which point we will archive the site. This is partly because we have some work in there from poets and artists who want to show the work elsewhere, but we will be documenting and making sure to preserve like what came out of this exhibition in various ways. So make sure you get a chance to see it either online or visiting Fenwick Gallery, which is open anytime the library is open on Mason's campus.
Yeah, and I would also just like to say absolutely thank you to Chen and Stephanie and Heather. And I don't know, Heather, did you want to say anything tonight too?
Oh, no, I just say thank you all. Thanks, Jessica, and everybody who spoke for, telling us more about your process and your collaborations. It was so fascinating to hear all of the different ways that people work together. And I loved learning more about just getting to have a deeper experience of the work. So thanks, everyone.
Yeah, thank you, Heather. I'm just so grateful to be able to work with all of you. I would just say, if anybody wants to put into like their website or their social media, I think I'm grateful to be connected with all of you in multiple ways. And so those things are all like, I think websites and those kind of contacts maybe are on the website, the gallery website also, but if you want to put them in here to stay connected, please do that too, and just stay connected to one another. I'm grateful that we've made this connection in the exhibition, and I just would love for it to continue for everyone.
Oh, we have a question for Peter. Peter, I don't know if you see that in the chat, but what might you see as the boldest possible extension of your work?
Boldest possible extension of me and Matt specifically, or just in general, like the whole shebang? Oh, okay. Well, I thought I was talking to Matt recently, and so we were really interested. Oh, this is it. This is two things. We're really interested in combating the metaverse vision. Like we're like, it's like such a stupid idea of like what humans should do or like should be spending their time. Like we love technology, we love games, but we're like, we got to come up with something else. So we're kicking around this idea called the dope verse. It's basically about, first of all, it's like what we call a co-opoly. So it's like built-in co-op instead of structure, instead of like everybody owns everything and shares everything instead of, Facebook owns you kind of thing. Second of all, it's much more a framework for people to layer on the things that they already do. Like a game could be, I love walking around the lake and drinking coffee. Like I'm like, we should just make that a game. Like I would love people to join me, and just give me. I'm always telling my friends, just call me. I'm going for a walk on the lake. Like I love doing that every day. So like that, opening up the idea of game beyond like, and he was telling me this amazing thing about one of the most beautiful games he had a student who was disabled. They were in they had a wheelchair and they made a game about running. And it was just a very straightforward, it wasn't technologically, fireworks. It was just like conceptually extremely powerful, the linkage and the logic. And I've always gravitated towards artworks that way, that are formed that way, where it's like, formally, it's not really necessary to be, bowled over, but it's just the kind of logic between it is very beautiful, and kind of really touches on a human condition or you know, and I think that's really the power of games, because with games, it's people allow themselves to kind of imagine a new, like just start over, you know, as children, like just return to a childlike state where we can imagine, you know, something not bogged down by everyday reality and all this other stuff. So I really like the beauty of kind of lo-fi production and more about, you know, the game. It's another thing we were talking about, stop me if I'm rambling, but recently was kind of, we're trying to figure out how to gamify consciousness, where it's not about, it's about spreading awareness and like awareness of each other as conscious beings and able to, you know, produce or coordinate or collaborate, rather than gamification of a competition or award, all stuff. It's but this idea of, we're jokingly calling it the pandopic instead of the whackdemic. So spreading dopeness, but not like evangelizing, just being dope and exemplifying dopeness as a game. And then it's kind of like radiating energy, good vibes to others who, you know, that kind of inspires others to consciousness without forcing them to do it or creating incentive structure, that kind of thing. So that was really kind of like the most bare minimum thing we're both coming towards, was like the idea of consciousness as a game.
I love it. Thank you. Thank you so much. And yeah, I love the gamifying. So that's really perfect, because I think that gamifying helps us remember like our true autodidactic purpose, right? Like the gamify is the way in. I love that. Oh, thank you, everybody. Thank you.
All right. Well, seeing no other questions.
I definitely agree. Yes, same. Nap games. Let's gamify naps and make it like we can all get together and do the naps as a game, and the walks around the lake, and then a nap. Yes.
I like this better than any
Yes.
metaverse.
Yes. All yes.
I think this is probably the best possible note to end on. So thank you again to everyone who spoke tonight. Thank you to Jessica. Thank you to Heather, Chen, and all of you in the audience. So I'm going to stop the recording now.